Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into the leather apron of a medieval blacksmith, feeling the scorching heat of the forge against our faces and the satisfying weight of a hammer in our calloused hands. Picture this. It's 1347, somewhere in the English countryside, and you're about to experience a day that would probably leave most of us modern folks crying for our chiropractors and workers' compensation claims. You probably won't survive this. The combination of molten metal, toxic fumes, and 12-hour workdays in a world without safety regulations would send today's OSHA inspectors into cardiac arrest. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment letting me know where you're listening from and what time it is in your corner of the world. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The rooster hasn't even considered crowing when you drag yourself from your straw mattress, every muscle in your body protesting yesterday's labor. The air is thick with the scent of cold ash and lingering smoke from your forge, located conveniently and dangerously attached to your modest home. You stumble through the pre-dawn darkness, your bare feet finding familiar grooves in the dirt floor. The forge stands like a sleeping dragon, its stone hearth still warm from yesterday's fire, waiting for your practiced hands to coax it back to life. Medieval blacksmiths typically worked from dawn to dusk, making them some of the earliest risers in their communities. You begin the ancient ritual of fire building, carefully arranging kindling over the glowing embers you've kept alive through the night. This is no simple task. Maintaining a forge fire was both art and science, requiring the right balance of fuel, airflow, and timing. Too little air and your fire dies too much, and you waste precious charcoal. The bellows become your morning meditation, their rhythmic wheeze filling the silence as you pump life into the coals. Each compression sends a shower of sparks dancing upward, painting temporary constellations on the soot-stained walls. The leather bellows, crafted by the local tanner and reinforced with iron bands you forged yourself, require constant maintenance. A tear in the leather could mean disaster. No air, no fire, no work, no food. Here's something that might surprise you. Medieval blacksmiths often used a mixture of charcoal and coal, but charcoal was preferred for its clean burning properties. Coal, while more abundant in some regions, produced sulfur compounds that could weaken the iron. Your grandfather taught you to recognize good charcoal by its sound. Quality pieces ring like tiny bells when struck together, while poor charcoal crumbles with a dull thud. As the fire catches and begins to roar, you can hear the village stirring to life around you. The baker's apprentice hurries past your door, arms full of wood for the bread ovens. Dogs bark in the distance, and somewhere a baby cries, sounds that will soon be drowned out by the percussion of your hammer on anvil. The growing light reveals your workspace. Anvil centered like an altar, hammers hanging in neat rows, tongs arranged by size and function. Everything has its place, because in this profession, wasted motion means wasted time, and wasted time means wasted money. Historians still argue whether medieval blacksmiths held higher or lower social status than other craftsmen, but there's no denying their importance in daily life. You're not just making horseshoes and nails, you're the backbone of medieval technology, the keeper of secrets that turn raw earth into tools, weapons, and wonders. Every piece of iron that passes through your hands carries the weight of civilization itself. The fire is ready now, glowing orange-white in the hearth like a captured piece of the sun. You take a deep breath, tasting the metallic tang of heated air, and prepare for another day of wrestling with the elements. Your leather apron hangs by the door, scarred with burn marks and stained with years of honest labor. As you tie it around your waist, you feel the familiar weight of responsibility settling on your shoulders. The village depends on you, and you won't let them down. The forge fire crackles with increasing intensity as you move through your morning ritual of tool preparation. Your hands, already mapped with small scars and calluses, check each hammer for loose handles and inspect every tong for proper alignment. This isn't mere perfectionism, it's survival. A loose hammerhead flying off during a crucial strike could ruin hours of work, or worse, take out an eye. You've seen it happen to other smiths, and the memory keeps your inspections thorough. Your coal supply dominates one corner of the workshop, a small mountain of black chunks that represents both your livelihood and your greatest expense. Medieval blacksmiths consumed enormous quantities of fuel. A busy smith might burn through several hundredweight of charcoal per day. You run the dark pieces through your fingers, feeling for the telltale density that indicates good burning quality. Poor coal burns too quickly, wasting money and time, while quality fuel maintains steady heat for hours. The morning light filtering through your single window reveals the organized chaos of your workspace. Hammers ranging from delicate planishing tools to massive sledges hang within arm's reach of your anvil. Each has earned its place through years of use, their wooden handles worn smooth by countless hours of gripping. Your heaviest hammer, nicknamed Thor's Thumb by the local children, weighs nearly 8 pounds and can deliver crushing blows that would shatter lesser men's wrists. Here's a detail that might amuse you. Medieval blacksmiths often kept a small shrine or religious icon near their forge, not just for divine protection, but because Saint Eligius was the patron saint of metalworkers. You mutter a quick prayer to him as you arrange your tools, asking for steady hands and no serious burns today. It's not superstition, it's practical insurance in a job where molten metal and sharp edges are constant companions. Your anvil, the heart of your operation, stands on a massive oak stump embedded deep in the earth floor. This isn't just any piece of iron, it's a carefully forged tool that cost you nearly a year's wages. The surface, polished to mirror brightness through countless hours of use, shows the subtle curves and edges that make precise work possible. You run your palm across its face, feeling for any nicks or imperfections that might transfer to your work. Historians still argue whether medieval anvils were superior to modern ones, but there's no denying their craftsmanship. Your anvil was forged by a master smith 3 villages over, its steel face welded to a wrought iron body, with techniques passed down through generations. The horn, that distinctive curved projection, allows you to shape horseshoes and rings with smooth, flowing curves, impossible to achieve on a flat surface. The water barrel beside your forge steams slightly in the morning air, its surface disturbed by the heat radiating from your fire. This isn't just for quenching hot metal, it's your emergency system, your cooling agent, and your tempering tool all in one. The water must be the right temperature, too cold, and you risk cracking hot iron. Too warm, and it won't provide proper hardening. You test it with your finger, noting the perfect coolness that will serve you well throughout the day. Your apprentice, a gangly boy named Edmund who's been with you for 2 years, stumbles in from the back room where he sleeps. His hair sticks up at odd angles, and his tunic bears yesterday's soot stains. Edmund's job is to maintain the bellows, organize tools, and gradually learn the mysteries of metalworking. He's eager but clumsy, a combination that keeps you constantly alert for potential disasters. The morning air carries the scent of baking bread from the village bakery, reminding you that while others prepare food for the body, you prepare tools for survival. Your stomach growls, but breakfast will wait. The fire is perfect now, and perfect fires don't last forever. You select your first piece of iron, a rough bar that will become something useful before the sun reaches its peak. As you position the iron in the coals, watching it begin to glow, you feel the familiar surge of anticipation that comes with starting a new day's work. The metal will fight you, it always does, but you have the knowledge, the tools, and the determination to bend it to your will. This is your domain, your kingdom of fire and iron, where raw materials become the building blocks of civilization itself. The sun has barely cleared the horizon when Thomas the farmer appears at your door, his weathered face creased with worry and desperation. He's dragging his plow behind him, and even from across the workshop, you can see the problem. The iron share has snapped clean through, leaving him with a useless wooden frame and planting season approaching faster than a runaway horse. Thomas shifts nervously from foot to foot, knowing that every day without a working plow means his family edges closer to starvation. Medieval agriculture depended entirely on the blacksmith's skill. Without properly forged plowshares, farmers couldn't break the heavy clay soil that dominated much of medieval Europe. You examine the broken piece, running your fingers along the fracture line. The iron shows the telltale signs of metal fatigue, countless seasons of striking stones and wrestling with stubborn roots have finally taken their toll. Thomas watches your face anxiously, trying to read whether this is a simple repair or a complete replacement. "Can you fix it, Master Smith?" he asks, his voice tight with barely controlled panic. His calloused hands twist his woolen cap into knots as he waits for your answer. You've known Thomas since childhood. He's an honest man who pays his bills and doesn't complain about prices. More importantly, his wheat feeds half the village, making his plow essential to everyone's survival. The repair will be challenging, but not impossible. Medieval plowshares required a specific balance of hardness and flexibility. Too hard, and they'd shatter on rocks. Too soft, and they'd bend uselessly in heavy soil. You heat the broken pieces in your forge, watching the iron slowly transition from black to red to orange. The metal seems to glow with inner fire, and you can almost feel its eagerness to be made whole again. Here's something that might surprise you. Medieval blacksmiths often performed what we now call metallurgical analysis, using nothing but their senses. You examine the grain structure of the heated iron, looking for signs of impurities or weaknesses. The way the metal sparks when you strike it tells you about its carbon content, while its color reveals the precise temperature. It's chemistry and physics performed through intuition and experience rather than instruments. Your hammer rings against the anvil in a steady rhythm as you work the hot iron, each blow carefully calculated to weld the broken pieces back together. Sparks fly like tiny stars, briefly illuminating your concentrated face before dying on the workshop floor. Edmund works the bellows with increasing vigor, sweat already beading on his forehead despite the early hour. The fire roars and dances, responding to the forced air like a living thing. Thomas hovers nearby, occasionally offering unhelpful suggestions or asking if you're sure the repair will hold. You ignore his nervous chatter, focusing entirely on the glowing metal under your hammer. The two broken pieces begin to merge, their edges flowing together like thick honey. This is the magic of smithing, taking something broken and making it stronger than it was before. Historians still argue whether medieval plows were more effective than earlier Roman designs, but there's no questioning their importance in expanding agriculture into previously uncultivable lands. Your plowshare, once completed, will slice through earth that would have defeated lighter tools, opening furrows deep enough to plant the seeds that will feed the village through another winter. The welding complete, you now face the delicate task of heat treating the blade. Too much heat, and the iron becomes brittle; too little, and it remains soft and useless. You watch the metal's color carefully, waiting for that perfect orange glow that indicates optimal hardening temperature. Experience has taught you to read iron like a book, understanding its moods and requirements through years of patient study. As you plunge the finished share into your water barrel, steam erupts in a dramatic hiss that makes Thomas jump backward. The quenching locks the iron's internal structure, creating the perfect balance of hardness and toughness needed for agricultural work. You fish the darkened metal from the water, running your thumb along its edge to test the sharpness. Perfect, sharp enough to cut earth, tough enough to last another season. Thomas's face lights up with relief as you present the repaired plowshare. He runs his own weathered hands over the work, marveling at the seamless repair. "It looks stronger than before," he says, and you nod with quiet pride. In many ways, it is stronger. The trauma of breaking and the skill of repair have created something more resilient than the original. This is the blacksmith's art, not just making things, but making them better. The rhythmic percussion of hammer on anvil fills the morning air as you begin your daily horseshoe production. Your anvil rings like a bell with each carefully placed blow, creating a metallic symphony that echoes off the workshop walls and announces your presence to the entire village. The local stable master, Willem, delivered 6 horses yesterday evening, each requiring new shoes before they can safely navigate the cobblestone streets and rocky paths that connect your village to the wider world. Medieval horses were essentially the trucks, cars, and motorcycles of their era, making horseshoes among the most crucial items a blacksmith produced. You heat your first iron bar in the forge's heart, watching it transition from cold black to cherry, red to the bright orange that signals perfect working temperature. The metal seems to pulse with inner life, eager to be shaped into something useful. Your hammer feels perfectly balanced in your grip, its weight distributed exactly right for hours of precise work. The horseshoe begins to take shape under your skilled hands, each blow deliberately placed to curve the iron into its distinctive U-shape. You work quickly while the metal remains hot and malleable, knowing that cold iron becomes stubborn and difficult to shape. The sound of your hammer changes subtly as the iron cools, the bright ring becoming duller and more muted. Experience has taught you to recognize these audio cues without conscious thought. Here's a detail that might fascinate you. Medieval horseshoes were often forged with small clips or projections that helped secure them to the hoof. These weren't just decorative, they provided additional grip and prevented the shoe from shifting during hard use. You carefully forge these clips with a smaller hammer, taking pride in the neat, uniform appearance that marks you as a skilled craftsman rather than a mere metalworker. Edmund struggles with the bellows, his young arms already trembling from the constant pumping required to maintain proper forge heat. You bark instructions without looking up from your work, your attention focused entirely on the glowing metal. Steady rhythm, boy. The fire breathes like a living thing. Respect it, and it will serve you well. The apprentice nods eagerly, though you can see exhaustion beginning to show in his movements. Your first horseshoe nears completion, its curve perfect, and its thickness uniform throughout. You punch the nail holes with practiced precision, using a specialized tool that creates clean, properly sized openings. Each hole must be angled correctly to ensure the nails will hold securely without damaging the horse's hoof. It's detailed work that requires both strength and delicacy, qualities that take years to develop. Historians still argue whether medieval horseshoes were superior to modern ones in terms of durability and horse comfort, but there's no denying the skill required to forge them by hand. Your horseshoes will outlast their modern counterparts, each one individually crafted to fit a specific horse's hoof rather than mass-produced to generic specifications. The extra effort shows in their longevity and performance. The second horseshoe proves more challenging. The iron contains a flaw that threatens to split under your hammer blows. You work around the defect carefully, using heat and pressure to encourage the metal to flow in directions that avoid the weak spot. This is the difference between a skilled smith and a mere striker of metal, the ability to adapt and overcome unexpected challenges. Your hammer work has found its rhythm now, the steady beat marking time like a giant clock. Clang, pause, each strike perfectly timed and positioned to achieve maximum effect with minimum effort. Visitors to your workshop often comment on the hypnotic quality of the sound, but for you, it's simply the music of honest work. The percussion becomes almost meditative, allowing your mind to wander while your hands continue their skilled labor. The morning sun climbs higher, increasing the already substantial heat in your workshop. Sweat beads on your forehead and runs down your back beneath your leather apron. The forge radiates warmth like a small sun, making the workshop uncomfortably hot even in cool weather. You pause occasionally to wipe your brow, careful not to let sweat drip onto the hot metal where it would create dangerous steam. By mid-morning, you've completed 3 horseshoes, each one a testament to your skill and dedication. They hang from hooks near your anvil, their dark surfaces bearing the subtle hammer marks that prove their handcrafted origin. 3 more await completion, and then you'll face the delicate task of fitting them to living horses, animals that don't always appreciate having their feet handled by sweating, soot-covered blacksmiths. The workshop fills with the scent of hot iron and coal smoke, a combination that would choke modern lungs, but feels like home to you. This is your world, a place where fire and metal dance together under your guiding hands, where raw materials become the tools and necessities that keep civilization running. Each horseshoe represents not just skilled craftsmanship, but your contribution to the great web of medieval life. The sun reaches its merciless peak just as Sir Geoffrey arrives with his damaged sword, the blade bearing a nasty nick that could prove fatal in combat. The timing couldn't be worse. Your forge is already blazing like a captive piece of hell, and the addition of sword work will push both the temperature and your skill to their absolute limits. Medieval swords weren't just weapons, they were masterpieces of metallurgy, requiring knowledge and techniques that separated true masters from mere metalworkers. Sir Geoffrey unwraps his weapon with reverent care, revealing 3 feet of steel that once sang through the air with deadly grace. The blade shows the telltale signs of hard use, numerous small nicks from parrying other weapons, a slight bend that speaks of desperate combat, and that one significant notch that prompted this emergency visit. His life depends on this repair, and he knows it. Knights without functional swords were just heavily armored targets waiting to be eliminated. You examine the damage with the critical eye of a master craftsman. The nick runs deep, nearly 1/3 of the way through the blade's thickness. Repairing it will require removing significant material, essentially reforging the entire edge section. This isn't mere hammering, it's reconstructive surgery performed on steel. Medieval swords were carefully balanced weapons, and any alteration to their geometry could ruin their handling characteristics forever. The blade goes into your forge with ceremony befitting its importance. You watch the steel heat gradually, noting how differently it behaves compared to the softer iron you've been working all morning. Sword steel contains more carbon, making it harder, but also more temperamental. Heat it too quickly, and it warps too slowly, and you waste precious time. The metal glows like liquid fire, its surface rippling with heat waves that make your eyes water. Here's something that might amaze you. Medieval sword making involved techniques that wouldn't be out of place in a modern laboratory. You control the blade's carbon content through a process called case hardening, where you pack the steel in charcoal and heat it for hours. The carbon migrates into the iron, creating a hard shell around a softer core. It's metallurgy performed through instinct and experience rather than instruments. Your hammer work on the sword requires an entirely different approach than horseshoe making. Each blow must be precise and controlled, designed to move metal without creating stress concentrations that could lead to failure. You work in sections, heating small areas and carefully drawing out the damaged portion. The blade slowly regains its elegant taper, the ugly notch disappearing under your skilled manipulation. Sir Geoffrey watches your work with fascination and barely concealed anxiety. His entire identity revolves around his prowess with this weapon, and watching it being literally rebuilt before his eyes is both captivating and terrifying. He offers occasional comments about the sword's history, how it belonged to his father, how it saved his life at the siege of Calais, how it's been blessed by 3 different priests. The most challenging part comes next, reshaping the blade's edge geometry. Medieval swords weren't just sharp, they were carefully engineered cutting tools with specific angles and curves designed for maximum effectiveness. You work with progressively smaller hammers, refining the edge until it achieves the perfect balance between sharpness and durability. Too thin and it chips too thick, and it won't cut properly. Historians still argue whether medieval swords were superior to later designs, but there's no questioning the skill required to forge them. Your blade must be hard enough to hold an edge, flexible enough to bend without breaking, and light enough for extended use. Achieving this balance requires understanding metallurgy at an almost molecular level. Knowledge passed down through generations of master smiths. The heat treatment process demands your complete attention. You heat the blade to a precise temperature, judging by color alone in the dim forge light. Too hot, and the steel becomes brittle; too cool, and it remains soft. You quench only the edge, leaving the spine softer and more flexible. The technique, called differential hardening, creates a blade that's sharp and hard where it needs to be, tough and resilient everywhere else. Steam erupts dramatically as the blade hits the water, and you hold your breath, waiting to see if your work has succeeded or if the sword will emerge with a fatal crack. The steel emerges intact, its dark surface bearing the subtle patterns that indicate successful heat treatment. You run your finger along the reconstructed edge, feeling the perfect smoothness that marks superior workmanship. Sir Geoffrey tests the repaired blade with a few practice swings, his face lighting up with satisfaction as he feels the familiar balance restored. The sword sings through the air exactly as it should, its weight perfectly distributed, and its edge keen enough to shave with. He nods approvingly, knowing that you've not just repaired his weapon, you've made it better than it was before. This is the blacksmith's highest art, taking something broken and making it whole again. The afternoon brings a steady stream of villagers clutching broken household items, each one essential to daily survival in ways that would baffle modern people. First through your door is Margaret, the baker's wife, carrying a bent iron pot that refuses to sit properly on her cooking fire. Behind her, young Peter holds a handful of bent nails that should have been securing his family's roof thatch. The queue extends outside your workshop, a testament to just how dependent medieval life was on properly functioning iron implements. You work with practiced efficiency, your hands moving almost automatically as you assess each item's needs. The bent pot requires careful reshaping to restore its flat bottom, work that looks simple but demands perfect understanding of how heated metal flows under pressure. Too much force, and you'll crack the iron; too little, and the stubborn dent will remain. You heat the pot's bottom evenly, watching for the telltale color that indicates optimal working temperature. Medieval cooking pots were precious items, often passed down through generations and repaired countless times before finally wearing out. Margaret's pot shows the accumulated wisdom of years, small patches where previous smiths reinforced weak spots, handle repairs that speak of careful maintenance, and the smooth interior surface that comes only from decades of use. You treat it with the respect it deserves, knowing that this humble vessel feeds a family every day. The nail straightening presents a different challenge entirely. Medieval nails were hand-forged, each one individually crafted and therefore too valuable to discard when bent. You heat them carefully, using small hammers to restore their original shape without destroying the carefully formed points. It's tedious work that requires patience and skill, qualities that separate master craftsmen from mere laborers. Here's a detail that might surprise you. Medieval households typically owned fewer than a dozen iron implements, making each one incredibly valuable. A good cooking pot might cost a month's wages, while a set of quality nails represented a significant investment. This scarcity made the blacksmith's repair services absolutely essential. People couldn't simply throw away broken items and buy replacements. Your anvil sees a parade of broken tools throughout the afternoon. A hoe with a cracked blade, kitchen knives worn down to near uselessness, and a peculiar iron gadget whose original purpose you have to guess at before you can repair it. Each item tells a story of hard use and careful maintenance, of families who depend on these simple tools for survival in a world without mass production. The most challenging repair comes from Father Benedict, the village priest, who brings a broken censer that should swing gracefully during religious ceremonies. The chain has snapped, and the incense burner itself bears several dents from an unfortunate encounter with the stone floor. Religious items demand special care, not just because of their sacred nature, but because they're often made from more exotic metals that require different techniques. You work on the censer with extra attention, knowing that your reputation depends partly on keeping the local religious authority satisfied. The repair requires delicate soldering work, joining the chain links with molten metal that must be perfectly matched to the original material. The scent of heated brass fills the workshop, different from iron's sharp tang, but equally familiar to your experienced nose. Historians still argue whether medieval craftsmen took pride in their work or simply viewed it as necessary drudgery, but your careful attention to each repair suggests something deeper than mere obligation. Every properly straightened nail, every smoothly functioning pot, every perfectly balanced tool represents your contribution to the village's survival. You're not just fixing objects, you're maintaining the infrastructure that keeps civilization running. The afternoon heat becomes oppressive as you work, your forge adding to the blazing sun's assault on the workshop. Sweat runs freely down your face and arms, occasionally hissing when it drips onto hot metal. You pause frequently to drink from your water barrel, knowing that dehydration can lead to dangerous mistakes around molten metal and sharp edges. Edmund helps where he can, organizing the growing pile of completed repairs and maintaining the forge fire. His young face shows the strain of the long day, but he's learning valuable lessons about the rhythm of smithing work. Busy periods like this teach efficiency and time management skills that will serve him well when he finally becomes a master craftsman himself. As the afternoon progresses, you develop a smooth workflow that maximizes your time and energy. Simple repairs get handled quickly, while complex items receive the attention they deserve. Your hammers ring in steady rhythm, punctuated by the hiss of quenching and the scrape of files smoothing rough edges. Each completed repair brings satisfaction and moves you closer to the day's end. The last afternoon customer brings a broken door latch, its mechanism jammed by rust and hard use. You disassemble the complex mechanism carefully, noting how the previous smith designed it to function smoothly despite medieval metallurgy's limitations. Cleaning and adjusting the parts takes patience, but soon the latch opens and closes with satisfying precision. Another family will sleep securely tonight, their door properly secured against the darkness beyond. The afternoon sun angles lower through your workshop window as you decide it's time for Edmund's daily lesson, though your own exhaustion makes teaching feel like climbing a mountain with a forge on your back. The boy has been working the bellows faithfully all day, his arms trembling with fatigue, but his enthusiasm still intact. Teaching an apprentice requires patience you're not sure you possess right now, but the ancient traditions of smithing demand that knowledge be passed down properly. You select a simple project for Edmund, a basic horseshoe nail that will test his hammer control without risking expensive materials. The nail seems trivial, but it requires precise techniques that form the foundation of all metalworking. Edmund's eyes light up at the prospect of actually shaping metal instead of just pumping bellows, though you can see nervous energy in his fidgeting hands. Medieval apprenticeships typically lasted 7 years, during which boys learned not just techniques, but the deeper mysteries of metallurgy. You began your own training at age 12, and the memories of those early failures still sting. Your first master, old Henrik, possessed infinite patience and a leather belt that encouraged proper attention to detail. Different times required different teaching methods. You demonstrate the proper grip, showing Edmund how to hold the hammer for maximum control rather than maximum force. Feel the weight, you instruct, guiding his young hands through the motion. The hammer should feel like an extension of your arm, not a separate tool. He nods eagerly, but you can see the disconnect between understanding and execution that plagues all beginners. The first few hammer blows are disasters. Edmund strikes too hard, too soft, too far from the intended target. The iron remains stubbornly unchanged, while his frustration grows visibly. You remember your own early struggles, the way metal seemed to mock your efforts, refusing to bend to your will. Patience, you remind yourself. Everyone begins somewhere. Here's something that might amuse you. Medieval apprentices often spent their first year doing nothing but watching and maintaining equipment. They weren't allowed to touch hammer and anvil until their masters deemed them ready. You've been more generous with Edmund, but watching his clumsy attempts, you wonder if the old ways might have been wiser. You step in to guide his hands, showing him how to aim precisely and strike with controlled force. Your larger hands dwarf his, but you remember being his size, struggling with tools that seemed designed for giants. Breathe with the work, you tell him, an advice that sounds mystical but proves practical. Tense muscles create imprecise strikes, while relaxed focus allows natural rhythm to develop. Edmund's technique gradually improves under your patient instruction. His hammer blows become more consistent, and the iron begins to respond to his efforts. You see the exact moment when he feels the metal yield to his will. His eyes widen with wonder and delight. It's a feeling every smith remembers, that first successful manipulation of reluctant iron. The nail begins to take shape, albeit slowly, and with much guidance. You show Edmund how to draw out the metal, creating the long shank that will penetrate wood and hold securely. The work requires understanding how heated iron flows, knowledge that comes only through experience and countless failed attempts. Theory means nothing when facing stubborn metal. Historians still argue whether medieval apprentices received formal education alongside their craft training, but your own experience suggests that smithing itself was education enough. Mathematics, physics, chemistry, all were learned through practical application rather than abstract study. Edmund discovers metallurgy through touch, heat, and hammer blows rather than books and lectures. The lesson takes far longer than it should, but you remember your own master's patience and try to emulate it. Edmund's enthusiasm remains high despite his struggles, and you see in him the same desperate desire to master the craft that once drove your own efforts. He asks endless questions about heat colors, hammer techniques, and the mysteries of metal behavior. As the nail nears completion, you show Edmund the delicate art of forming the head. This requires precise hammer control and perfect timing. Too much force, and the head splits. Too little, and it remains weak. You guide his hands through the process, feeling his concentration intensify as he realizes the importance of every movement. The finished nail is far from perfect. Its proportions are slightly off, and the head bears the irregular marks of inexperienced hammer work. But it's functional, and more importantly, it's Edmund's first successful creation. You see pride bloom in his young face as he holds his work up to the light, examining every detail with the intensity of a master craftsman. You set the nail aside carefully, knowing that Edmund will treasure this first success for years to come. Every master smith remembers their first properly forged item, and this humble nail represents Edmund's entry into the brotherhood of metalworkers. Tomorrow, you'll find other projects for him, gradually building his skills and confidence. The teaching session has been exhausting, but you feel a deep satisfaction in passing on knowledge that took you years to acquire. Edmund's progress reminds you why the apprentice system exists, not just to train craftsmen, but to ensure that ancient skills survive into the future. The boy's enthusiasm rekindles your own passion for the craft, reminding you why you chose this difficult but rewarding life. As the sun begins its descent toward the horizon, painting your workshop in shades of gold and amber, the evening rush begins, that predictable parade of customers who have finally worked up the courage to place orders for complex items they've been contemplating for weeks. Tonight brings Father Benedict again, this time requesting a set of ornate hinges for the church door, followed by Master William, the carpenter, who needs specialized tools for his latest commission. Each order represents tomorrow's challenges, and you listen carefully while calculating materials, time, and the growing ache in your back. The church hinges present a particularly complex challenge. Father Benedict describes his vision with sweeping gestures, wanting decorative elements that will honor God while remaining functional enough to support the heavy oak doors. Medieval church hardware often featured intricate designs that required advanced smithing techniques. You'll need to forge decorative leaves, scrollwork, and perhaps even religious symbols, all while ensuring the hinges function smoothly for decades. You quote Father Benedict a price that makes him wince slightly, though he nods acceptance after a moment's consideration. Religious commissions pay well, but demand perfection. There's no room for error when crafting items for God's house. The hinges will require your finest steel, hours of careful decorative work, and finishing techniques that will showcase your mastery of the craft. Master William's tool request proves equally challenging. He needs a specialized plain iron with a curved profile, something that doesn't exist in any merchant stock. Custom tool making represents the pinnacle of smithing skill, requiring perfect understanding of how the final user will employ the implement. William describes his project, an ornate wooden chest with curved panels, and you visualize the exact tool geometry needed. The evening light filtering through your workshop window casts long shadows across your anvil, reminding you that daylight hours are precious and finite. You make careful notes about each order, sketching rough designs and calculating material requirements. Medieval smiths couldn't rely on written contracts. Your reputation and the customer's trust formed the only binding agreements needed. Here's something that might surprise you. Medieval blacksmiths often worked on commission rather than producing items for general sale. Most of your income comes from custom work, like tonight's orders, each piece crafted to meet specific needs and requirements. This system ensured high quality, but also meant that lean periods could be financially devastating if customers delayed their orders. A young woman named Isabella approaches hesitantly, clutching a small leather pouch that jingles softly with coins. She needs a special gift for her betrothed, a decorative belt buckle featuring intertwined hearts and their initials. The romance of young love brings a smile to your weathered face, though you know that such delicate decorative work will test your artistic skills as much as your technical abilities. You discuss design options with Isabella, sketching possibilities on a piece of precious parchment. Medieval belt buckles served both functional and decorative purposes, often featuring intricate patterns that demonstrated the owner's wealth and taste. Her modest coin purse suggests a simple design, but you're determined to create something beautiful within her budget. The most intriguing order comes from a traveling merchant who produces a peculiar brass instrument from his pack. It's some kind of measuring device, he explains, used by scholars in distant universities. The mechanism has broken, and he needs repairs that require understanding of gear ratios and precision fitting. This type of work excites you a chance to work with exotic materials and learn new techniques. Historians still argue whether medieval craftsmen were capable of producing precision instruments, but the evidence suggests otherwise. Your grandfather once repaired a mechanical clock for a wealthy lord, and the memory of his careful explanations about gear trains and escapements still influences your approach to complex mechanisms. Knowledge traveled slowly in medieval times, but it did travel. As the evening progresses, you find yourself committed to more work than seems humanly possible. Tomorrow will bring the challenge of organizing these projects efficiently, balancing simple repairs with complex commissions while maintaining the quality standards that built your reputation. The mental gymnastics of project management exhaust you almost as much as the physical labor. Edmund listens to each order discussion with fascination, occasionally asking questions that reveal his growing understanding of the craft. His enthusiasm for the decorative work particularly impresses you. Artistic ability can't be taught, only nurtured, and the boy shows promise in this area. Perhaps someday he'll specialize in ornamental smithing, creating beauty instead of just utility. The final customer of the evening brings a challenge that makes you pause. A request for a child's first set of eating utensils, sized for tiny hands, but built to last years. Medieval children used adult utensils or went without, but wealthy families increasingly requested custom items. The work requires precision and attention to detail that would challenge even experienced smiths. You calculate the total materials needed for all evening orders, and the numbers make your head spin. Iron, steel, brass, coal, and charcoal. The costs add up quickly, requiring careful budgeting to ensure profitability. Medieval smiths who miscalculated material needs often found themselves working for free or worse, owing money to suppliers. As you close negotiations with the final customer, you feel the weight of tomorrow's responsibilities settling on your shoulders. Each order represents trust placed in your skills, money invested in your reputation, and expectations that must be met regardless of personal exhaustion. The burden is heavy, but it's also the foundation of your livelihood and standing in the community. The workshop falls quiet as the last customer departs, leaving you alone with Edmund and the daunting list of tomorrow's challenges. You review your notes one final time, visualizing each project and planning the sequence of work that will maximize efficiency. The evening air carries the scent of cooking fires and domestic life, reminding you that while others rest, smiths plan for tomorrow's labors. The setting sun paints your workshop in deep amber hues as you begin the evening ritual of cleaning and organizing your workspace. Every tool must be returned to its proper place, every surface cleared of metal shavings and coal dust. This isn't mere tidiness, it's survival preparation for tomorrow's work. In a profession where seconds can mean the difference between perfect timing and ruined materials, organization becomes a matter of life and death. Edmund moves through the workshop with practiced efficiency, gathering scattered tools and returning them to their designated spots. His young body shows the strain of the long day, but he's learned that the cleanup routine is as important as the work itself. Medieval apprentices who neglected evening duties often found themselves dismissed without ceremony, sent home to explain their failure to disappointed families. You begin the delicate process of banking your forge fire, a technique that requires perfect balance between safety and economy. The fire must be reduced to glowing coals that will maintain heat overnight without consuming excessive fuel or creating dangerous conditions. Too much air and the fire burns wastefully, too little, and it dies completely, requiring tomorrow's restart from cold ashes. The process involves carefully arranging the remaining coal around the hottest coals, creating a controlled burn that will smolder safely through the night. You've been performing this ritual for 20 years, but it still demands your complete attention. A poorly banked fire can flare up unexpectedly, potentially burning down your workshop and everything you've worked to build. Here's something that might fascinate you. Medieval smiths often kept their forge fires burning continuously for weeks or even months, banking them each evening and reviving them each morning. Starting a fire from cold ashes was time-consuming and wasteful, making fire maintenance a crucial skill. Your grandfather claimed he kept the same fire alive for an entire year, feeding it carefully and protecting it like a living thing. The cleanup reveals the day's accumulated debris, iron filings, coal dust, and the mysterious black soot that coats everything in a smith's workshop. You sweep carefully, knowing that metal shavings left on the floor can cause dangerous slips when you're carrying hot materials. Edmund empties the water barrel and refills it with fresh water, preparing for tomorrow's quenching and cooling needs. Your anvil requires special attention, its polished surface cleaned of scale and residue that could mar tomorrow's work. You oil the surface lightly, protecting it from rust while maintaining the smooth finish that makes precise work possible. The anvil is your most valuable tool, and its care takes priority over personal comfort or convenience. The tool inspection reveals several items needing maintenance: a hammer with a slightly loose handle, tongs that need adjustment, and a file worn smooth from heavy use. These repairs can't wait. Medieval smiths who neglected their tools often found themselves unable to work effectively when crucial moments arrived. You make mental notes about tomorrow's maintenance tasks, adding them to an already overwhelming schedule. As you work, the sounds of the village settling into evening routines filter through your workshop walls. Children's voices calling in the distance, dogs barking at shadows, and the distant sound of evening prayers from the church. These familiar sounds remind you that your work serves a community, that every horseshoe and kitchen knife contributes to the complex web of medieval life. The most critical task involves securing your workshop against theft and accidents. Medieval smiths were attractive targets for thieves. Their tools and materials represented considerable wealth in a world where iron was precious. You check the heavy wooden shutters that protect your window, ensuring they're properly barred against unauthorized entry. Historians still argue whether medieval crime rates were higher or lower than modern levels, but there's no questioning the value of a well-equipped smithy. Your workshop contains more iron than most people will see in their entire lives, along with tools that could outfit several competing craftsmen. Security isn't paranoia, it's practical necessity. The banking process nears completion as you adjust the forge dampers to control airflow precisely. The fire settles into a steady glow, neither flaring dramatically nor threatening to die completely. You'll check it once more before bed, ensuring it maintains the perfect balance that will save time and fuel tomorrow morning. Edmund finishes his cleanup tasks and awaits dismissal, his young face showing the honest exhaustion of hard work well done. You nod approvingly at his efforts, knowing that such dedication will serve him well throughout his apprenticeship. The boy has learned valuable lessons today about the rhythm and requirements of smithing work. The final task involves checking your material supplies, counting iron bars, and estimating coal needs for tomorrow's ambitious project list. The numbers are tight. You'll need to visit the charcoal burner early tomorrow morning, adding another task to an already crowded schedule. Medieval smiths who ran out of fuel during crucial work often found themselves explaining failures to disappointed customers. As the workshop falls into ordered silence, you feel the deep satisfaction that comes from completing another day's honest labor. Your muscles ache, your hands bear fresh burns and calluses, but the pile of completed work testifies to your skill and dedication. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, but tonight you can rest knowing that you've earned your place in the ancient brotherhood of smiths. The last rays of sunlight filter through your workshop as you settle at your rough wooden table with a handful of coins and a piece of precious parchment for calculating the day's earnings. Medieval accounting requires no complex mathematics, just careful counting, and the ability to recognize genuine silver from the clever forgeries that occasionally circulate through village markets. Your calloused fingers sort through the mixed collection of coins, each one representing hours of skilled labor and satisfied customers. The day's take shows promise. Thomas the farmer paid in good silver for his plow repair. Sir Geoffrey's sword work commanded premium prices, and the afternoon's stream of household repairs added up to respectable earnings. You separate the coins by type and origin, noting the subtle differences that distinguish legitimate currency from the debased copies that unscrupulous merchants sometimes attempt to pass off as genuine payment. Medieval currency was a complex mixture of local and foreign coins, each with different silver content and accepted values. You've learned to recognize the weight and ring of genuine silver, skills that protect you from the economic tricks that can ruin unwary craftsmen. A false coin accepted today becomes a loss when you try to purchase materials tomorrow, making careful inspection essential to financial survival. The evening's order-taking session produced encouraging commitments, but also concerning challenges. Father Benedict's church hinges will require expensive materials and extensive time investment, while Master William's specialized tool demands techniques you've never attempted before. You calculate material costs carefully, knowing that underestimating expenses can transform profitable work into financial disaster. Here's something that might surprise you. Medieval craftsmen often operated on extremely thin profit margins, with material costs consuming 60 to 70% of their earnings. Your success depends not just on skilled craftsmanship, but on careful business management and accurate cost estimation. A few miscalculated orders can wipe out months of profitable work. The charcoal situation presents your most pressing concern. Your supplier, Old Henrik, who lives in the forest clearing 2 miles from the village, has been hinting at price increases due to poor weather affecting his burning operations. Charcoal represents your largest ongoing expense, and price increases directly impact your profitability. You make a mental note to discuss long-term supply contracts tomorrow. Edmund's wages, though modest, represent another fixed cost that must be accounted for. Apprentices traditionally received room, board, and training rather than direct payment, but you've been giving the boy small coins for his dedicated work. His family depends on these earnings, and his progress justifies the investment in his future skills. The tax collector's recent visit still weighs on your mind. Medieval craftsmen faced various levies and obligations to their lords, guilds, and local authorities. The Smiths Guild demands annual dues in exchange for protection and representation, while the local lord expects payments for the privilege of operating a forge within his domain. These costs are unavoidable, but significantly impact your bottom line. Your workshop's maintenance needs present ongoing financial concerns. The roof requires attention before winter. The bellows need leather repairs, and your anvil block shows signs of settling that could affect precision work. Deferred maintenance might save money short-term, but equipment failures during crucial orders can destroy your reputation and livelihood. The lending situation creates additional complexity. Master William still owes you for the carpenter's tools you forged last month, while you owe the iron merchant for materials purchased on credit. Medieval commerce often operated on informal credit systems, with payments delayed until harvest time or major sales. managing these relationships requires diplomacy and careful record keeping. Historians still argue whether medieval craftsmen were generally prosperous or struggled financially, but your experience suggests the answer depends entirely on skill, reputation, and business acumen. Talented smiths with established customers can live comfortably, while those lacking skills or marketing ability often face poverty despite their essential services. The evening's calculations reveal modest profits that will cover basic expenses and provide small amounts for future investment. You set aside coins for tomorrow's charcoal purchase, next week's iron delivery, and the guild dues that come due at month's end. The remaining amount represents your actual earnings, enough to maintain your current lifestyle, but not sufficient for major improvements. Competition from neighboring villages adds another layer of concern. A skilled young smith has recently established himself in the next settlement, offering lower prices and aggressive marketing to established customers. You'll need to maintain quality advantages while carefully managing your pricing to retain market share. The record keeping presents its own challenges. You make careful marks on your parchment, noting outstanding debts and future obligations. Medieval literacy was limited, but craftsmen who couldn't manage basic accounting often found themselves cheated by suppliers or customers. Your simple system works, but it requires constant attention and periodic review. As you complete the evening's financial assessment, you feel the familiar mixture of satisfaction and concern that accompanies any small business operation. The day's work has been profitable, but tomorrow brings new challenges and expenses. The ancient rhythms of medieval commerce continue, with smiths serving as essential links in the chain of economic activity that sustains village life. The deepening twilight brings blessed relief from the forge's heat as you begin your personal evening routine, tending to the burns and cuts that mark another day in the ancient battle between human will and stubborn metal. Your hands, those skilled instruments that transform raw iron into civilization's necessities, show the accumulated damage of years spent wrestling with fire and steel. Tonight's new burns join the constellation of scars that map your journey from apprentice to master craftsman. You wash your hands and arms in the cool water from your personal basin, watching the day's grime and metal particles swirl away in dark rivulets. The simple act of cleaning becomes a meditation, marking the transition from work to rest. Medieval hygiene was limited compared to modern standards, but smiths understood the importance of removing metal residue and coal dust that could cause infections in even minor cuts. The evening meal awaits, a simple but nourishing combination of bread, cheese, and ale that represents the fruits of your labor. Medieval smiths ate better than many villagers, their essential skills commanding wages that allowed modest comfort. You eat slowly, savoring flavors that taste infinitely better after a day of honest work. The bread still warm from the baker's oven, the cheese sharp and satisfying, the ale cool and refreshing. Your tools require final inspection before tomorrow's challenges. You examine each hammerhead for cracks, test tong joints for proper alignment, and and check file surfaces for wear. Medieval craftsmen who neglected evening maintenance often discovered equipment failures at crucial moments, turning profitable work into expensive disasters. The minutes spent on tool care tonight prevent hours of frustration tomorrow. Here's something that might amaze you. Medieval smiths often sharpened their tools using techniques virtually unchanged for centuries. You work a whetstone across your cold chisels, maintaining the precise angles that make clean cuts possible. The steady scraping sound becomes hypnotic, a peaceful counterpoint to the day's percussion of hammer against anvil. The evening's quiet moments allow reflection on the day's successes and challenges. Thomas's plow repair went smoothly, showcasing your mastery of basic techniques. Sir Geoffrey's sword work pushed your skills to their limits, but the successful outcome reinforced your reputation for quality craftsmanship. The afternoon stream of household repairs demonstrated your versatility and community value. Edmund's progress provides particular satisfaction. The boy's first successful nail represents a milestone in his development, proof that patient teaching produces tangible results. You remember your own master's satisfaction when you achieved similar breakthroughs, understanding now the pride that comes from successfully transferring knowledge to the next generation. The evening air carries sounds that speak of community life, continuing its ancient rhythms. Mothers calling children inside, men discussing the day's work, and the distant sound of evening prayers from the church. These familiar sounds remind you that your work serves something larger than personal ambition. You're part of the complex web of relationships that sustains medieval society. Your back aches from the day's labor, a reminder that smithing exacts a physical price that accumulates over years of dedicated work. You stretch carefully, working out the kinks that come from hours of precise hammer work. Medieval smiths often suffered from back problems, joint pain, and the cumulative effects of heat exposure. But the alternatives, farming, soldiering, or begging, offered even less attractive prospects. The meditation continues as you prepare your clothes for tomorrow's work. Your leather apron needs attention where sparks have burned small holes, and your tunic requires mending where sharp metal has snagged the fabric. These maintenance tasks, seemingly trivial, represent the attention to detail that separates successful craftsmen from those who struggle with constant equipment failures. Historians still argue whether medieval craftsmen found satisfaction in their work or viewed it as necessary drudgery. But your evening reflections suggest something deeper than mere obligation. The transformation of raw iron into useful tools provides a satisfaction that transcends monetary reward. You're participating in the ancient human tradition of making things better, of imposing order on chaos through skill and determination. The final preparations involve banking the small fire that heats your living space, ensuring it will provide warmth through the night without consuming excessive fuel. You check the wooden shutters that protect your windows, confirming they're properly secured against both thieves and weather. Medieval nights brought dangers that required constant vigilance. as you prepare for bed, you feel the deep fatigue that comes from a day of meaningful work. Your muscles ache, your hands bear fresh burns, and your mind carries the weight of tomorrow's challenges. But there's also satisfaction in knowing that you've contributed something valuable to the world, that your skilled hands have transformed raw materials into tools that will serve the community for years to come. The evening's final moments bring a sense of continuity with the generations of smiths who came before and those who will follow. You're part of an ancient tradition that stretches back to the first human who learned to shape metal with fire and hammer. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, but tonight you can rest knowing that you've upheld the standards of your craft and served your community with honor. The candle flame flickers against the rough stone walls of your modest chamber as you finally collapse onto your straw-filled mattress, every muscle in your body singing a symphony of exhaustion that would make a cathedral choir envious. Your hands, those weathered instruments of creation, throb with the day's accumulated burns and calluses. Yet there's a deep satisfaction in their ache, the honest pain of meaningful work completed. The familiar scent of smoke and metal lingers in your hair and clothes, an aromatic reminder of the forge's embrace that has defined your existence for 20 years. The day's events replay in your mind like a minstrel's tale, each customer and challenge flowing into the next with the rhythm of a well-practiced story. Thomas's desperate face when he brought his broken plow, Sir Geoffrey's careful attention as you repaired his life-saving sword, the stream of villagers clutching their precious but broken household implements. Each interaction represented more than simple commerce. They were threads in the complex tapestry of medieval life, with you serving as the craftsman who kept the fabric from unraveling. Your mind drifts to tomorrow's challenges, the church hinges that will test your artistic abilities, Master William's specialized tool that demands techniques you've never attempted. The mental gymnastics of project planning gradually give way to drowsiness, your practical concerns dissolving into the soft haze of approaching sleep. Medieval smiths learned to compartmentalize their worries, understanding that exhaustion and anxiety make dangerous companions in a profession involving fire and sharp edges. The sounds of the village settling into night create a lullaby more soothing than any courtly music. Distant conversations fade to whispers, dogs bark once and fall silent, and the night watchman's footsteps echo briefly on the cobblestones before disappearing into darkness. These familiar sounds wrap around you like a comfortable blanket, proof that your community sleeps safely tonight, thanks partly to your day's labor. Here's something that might surprise you. Medieval smiths often dreamed about their work, their subconscious minds continuing to solve technical problems even during sleep. Your dreams tonight will likely feature glowing metal, the rhythm of hammer strikes, and the satisfaction of successful repairs. The boundary between waking and sleeping becomes blurred when passion and profession merge so completely. Edmund's progress brings a warm glow to your thoughts as consciousness begins to fade. The boy's first successful nail represents hope for the future, proof that ancient skills will survive into the next generation. you remember your own master's patient instruction, how old Henrik's weathered hands guided your clumsy attempts until competence gradually emerged. The cycle continues, knowledge flowing from generation to generation like water finding its natural course. The physical exhaustion that seemed overwhelming moments ago now becomes a blessing, pulling you toward sleep with gentle but irresistible force. Your breathing deepens and slows, matching the rhythm of the banked forge fire that glows softly in the workshop beyond your chamber walls. The day's tension melts away, replaced by the peaceful satisfaction of work well done and community service faithfully provided. Your dreams begin to form, populated by the familiar figures of customers and colleagues, neighbors and competitors. The village blacksmith occupies a unique position in medieval society, essential, but not elite, skilled, but not scholarly, respected, but not revered. You bridge the gap between raw materials and finished products, between human needs and practical solutions, between the ancient knowledge of metallurgy and the daily requirements of survival. The candle gutters and dies, plunging your chamber into darkness, relieved only by the faint glow seeping through the cracks around your workshop door. That gentle light represents continuity, the fire that has burned in forges for countless generations, tended by skilled hands and fed by patient labor. Tomorrow, you'll add your own contribution to this ancient tradition, but tonight you can rest knowing that you've honored the legacy of those who came before. As sleep finally claims you completely, your last conscious thought celebrates the simple but profound satisfaction of a day spent in honest labor. You've taken raw iron and transformed it into tools that will serve your community for years to come. Broken things have been made whole, new implements have been created, and the ancient dance between human skill and natural materials has continued its eternal rhythm. The workshop grows quiet now, the day's percussion of hammer on anvil fading to memory as our medieval blacksmith surrenders to well-earned rest. The banked forge fire glows like a sleepy eye, keeping watch over tools that rest in perfect order, ready for tomorrow's challenges. Outside, the village sleeps under a canopy of stars that have witnessed countless generations of craftsmen, each one adding their small but essential contribution to the great story of human civilization. In your dreams, you might hear the distant ring of the anvil, feel the satisfying resistance of hot iron yielding to skilled hands, or sense the warm glow of perfectly maintained fire. These are the dreams of makers, of people who understand that civilization rests not on grand gestures, but on the accumulated small victories of daily craftsmanship. Every horseshoe properly fitted, every blade skillfully sharpened, every broken tool carefully repaired, represents a quiet triumph of human ingenuity over the chaos of a world that constantly seeks to break what we build. The medieval blacksmith's day ends as it began with fire and dedication, with skilled hands and patient heart, with the deep satisfaction that comes from serving something larger than personal ambition. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, fresh opportunities to transform raw materials into useful tools, and the continuing satisfaction of work that matters. But tonight, rest comes easily to those who have earned it honest labor and skilled service. Let the gentle rhythm of the bellows and the soft glow of banked coals carry you into peaceful sleep, where dreams of iron and fire merge with the timeless satisfaction of meaningful work completed. The ancient dance between human skill and natural materials continues. But for now, in this quiet moment, all is well in the world of the medieval smith. Sleep well, and may your own dreams be filled with the quiet satisfaction of work